Hello, everyone, and welcome again to the Appsmith monthly live coding session. Today, I am incredibly excited because we have a special guest. First of all, as usual, don't be a strange and say hello on the chat and get comfortable because today is a live coding session. So pay attention because you will learn a lot. My name is Kevin Blanco, and as usual, I am a developer advocate here at Appsmith, and I'm thrilled to be joined today by one of our masters here at the company. You know him, Joseph. Hey, Joseph, how's it going, buddy? I'm going to add him to
Thanks,
the
Kevin.
conversation. There you go. Sorry, I didn't add you to the conversation. How's it going, buddy?
Cool. Hey, thanks. Glad to be here.
I'm super excited to be here as well. Joseph, we have a packed session. I know what you've prepared because I have seen it and I don't want to waste any time in introductions and things like that.
Yeah.
So, why don't you tell everyone who our special guest is for today?
Yeah. So there's this platform I've been using for a while called Mockoon. It helps you fake an API response. So it's similar to Faker.js, but it turns that into an API. And it's really handy when you're just building a demo or you want to build a app with a mock backend. So today we have the founder of Mockoon joining us, and we're really excited to be partnering with him and to see what this can let us accomplish with templates and with different apps mocking the back end. So our special guest, without further ado, Guillaume.
Hey, hello,
Hey,
hello, Kevin. Hello, Joseph.
hey, how's it going, buddy?
Hey.
Yeah, fine. Thank you for having me.
No, it's thank you for taking your time and being part of this exciting conversation. And for everyone joining the conversation, Guillaume is the actual founder of Mockoon. So it definitely is a great opportunity not only to learn about his product, but also about his journey and make any questions that you want on the chat. So, Guillaume, again, it's a pleasure to have you here. But before we start building something great, as Joseph does, why don't you tell us a little bit about what Mockoon is and what your journey has been so far with Mockoon?
So Mockoon, we could say that it's quite an old tool. It's already 6 years old, and for me, it was very quick. But it's still very a very long time. And I mean, I wrote that in a blog post some time ago. When I was like, wow, time goes by. Um, So before switching careers, I was a lawyer. So I'm a lawyer turned full stack developer with a focus on uh, mostly front end or everything JavaScript, front end, back end JavaScript, but with a lot of front end. I really like that, building products or applications that are facing users, building a great user experience.
Mm.
And I was working here in Luxembourg, where I live since some years in a bank 6 years ago, and it was very simple. We needed an API mocking tool. So API mocking, if you don't know, or if the people listening to or watching the video don't know, it's a technique that allows to imitate, so mock, an API that is not available yet because it's just, for example, down or it hasn't been built yet, or it's behind authentication, account creation, token provisioning, whatever. So
Mhm.
you may want to imitate the API for prototyping purposes. Maybe you just want to try something quickly, or maybe it's during testing because your test environment doesn't have access to the API itself, for example.
Right.
And we banking industry here everywhere, but in Luxembourg even more. It's highly regulated, so we couldn't have any cloud tool. So I looked at what I call them competitors or alternatives were doing. Postman, the mocking option of Postman, Stoplight. They were mostly cloud based. So it wasn't an option. And, I'm a developer. So I always want to build something by myself, even if it means, burning out and, spending your whole nights on this.
Right.
So I started building it in August 2017. Um, I had tried building a startup in the past. So I really wanted it to be like a nice side project, but also maybe something more, but it was a big maybe. Still, I focused on building an MVP in 3 months, and I released a bit everywhere. Happy Reddit, and the feedback was really good. So, long story short, 6 years later, I'm still working on this tool. It has been a long road or a long journey. You can have a look at the website. No, it's quite bigger than at the beginning. So it really began with a very simple desktop interface that you will see with Joseph very soon. And now we have a CLI, a serverless package, tutorials, articles, blog posts, etc. And I'm also solo bootstrapping this venture, if I can call it like that, because it was
Yeah.
a side project. And 2 years ago, I quit my job to focus full time. And of course, as it's open source, I have a lot of contributors helping. So that's awesome. And I'm also currently building a SaaS platform to sustain the project. And yeah, there has been a lot of questions, why do you take, funding? Also, do you take donations, sponsorships? Um, Probably you read that everywhere. Funding for open source project is nearly broken. It's only the top, getting the most funding. So it seems that there is a lot of funding, but it's not that true. I was very lucky to be selected by GitHub Accelerator last
Mm.
year, so it helped a lot.
Mm.
But still, we are a very, very tiny percentage of open source projects that are funded. And for me, for example, I'm still probably at the bottom of this, let's say, very small top. So you have to find a way to sustain the project or to guarantee that the open source thing is staying. And my opinion is that maybe venture capitalism is not always the best road. So that's why I'm bootstrapping and I'm SaaS. So I'm building a cloud around an application that was cloudless at the beginning. So that's probably a paradox, but I'm open to questions. Yeah, that's it. That's
Cool.
an overview.
Excellent. So we share a couple of things around that because Appsmith is as well open source, and well, I personally think that the way you're approaching it and taking it to the cloud, it's definitely the best approach that you can take. But being open source is again one of the best decisions you made, and having the community supporting your back and being able to run your product self-hosted, which is what I believe Joseph is going to be doing.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And your journey is quite interesting, like just being from a side project to an actual full-time job 2 years ago. It is quite a journey. So first of all, congratulations, and second, best of lucks.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, with that introduction in place, and the fact that we have the actual founder of the product and the creator of the product, Joseph is going to take the challenge of explaining the product that John built, and build something meaningful on the top of that in Appsmith, with one of the most interesting things that we're probably going to be seeing in this year for Appsmith that is coming up, which is, I believe, custom widgets. But I will let Joseph to explain exactly what is going to be building and how he is going to make that happen. So Joseph, why don't you tell us what's going to be building today?
Awesome. Thanks, Kevin. All right. I've got something ready here. Let me pull this up. Window. Here we go. Can you guys see this?
Yes, we can see it.
All right. So we have a couple awesome things for you today. We have a special guest, like we said. We got Mockoon's founder here, and also a new feature. Now we have custom widgets are coming out, and that is going to enable so many different styles, different types of widgets that we don't have today. That one widget is going to solve so many of those feature requests. So today we're going to go with our monthly contest is productivity, and we want to fit in with that. So we've got a Gantt chart. We're going to use a custom widget to build a Gantt chart. And for a Gantt chart, you need a bunch of dates with start and end dates that kind of overlap and dependencies between them. And so I wanted some mock data for that. I used Mockoon, and I took a hard-coded sample of the data for a Gantt chart, and then was able to quickly create an API so that I could mock that and then skip the back-end part and get to building the app. I wanted to work on the interface. So today we're going to look at how to use Mockoon to quickly mock an API. And then there's also API templates. Mockoon has this really cool feature that you can just give it a prompt and it will generate a template. And then that template will generate a bunch of new records for you when you hit the API endpoint. And then we will connect Mockoon locally to Appsmith locally. So you can deploy Mockoon in the cloud and host your own instance. I am just hosting it locally so I could quickly get it spun up and connect to it. And to do that, I have to have Appsmith locally or open port and forwarding and whatnot. So I'm just doing it all local for today. And then in Appsmith, we're going to check out the new custom widgets and use that to create a Gantt chart from Frappe Gantt. It's a JavaScript library, and we're going to use that in a custom widget. And then this is one of the things I really want to focus on today is the transforming the data to get into the custom widget and then back out of it. Because the library expects everything in a certain format, but your data is not going to be in that format. Every use case, every user is going to come in with a different structure, and the date's called start date or date end or whatever. And the library only takes one format. So what we're going to do is transform the data and then figure out how to update the model and trigger events outside the custom widget and the rest of Appsmith when the user interacts with that custom widget. All right. Let's see. Can you guys see the app here?
Yes, we can see it. Maybe zoom in a little bit if possible.
So this is
There
what
you
we're
go.
going to be building. And I have Mockoon already set up. We'll go through how to connect that here in a minute. But just to give a preview of what we're going to build. So I have an API connected to Mockoon, and every time I run this API here, it's generating a new set of tasks with different start and end dates, different dependencies. And you can see that I can adjust the progress, the percentage completion of a task, or the start or end date. And if there's, depending on the dependencies, you can drag some tasks. See, like this one I can move, this one I can move, but depending on if it has other ones dependent on it, you can't drag it in the interface. So there's a lot to learn about the library separate from just how to implement it. And so that's what I want to go through is custom widgets. How do you tie in an external library, transforming your data to get into that library, and then running events and getting stuff back out. So I think that's everything that I want to cover. So with that out of the way, I'm going to get into the actual stuff here. I got to stop the share and get over to Mockoon here. So I think I was only sharing the browser. Give me just a minute.
Sure, no worries.
Got a million windows open.
Well, that happens. Guillaume, am I pronouncing your name correctly? Guillaume, or what's the best way?
Guillaume, but
Guillaume.
okay.
Okay, perfect. Where are you based, by the way?
Luxembourg.
Ah, nice.
Not very sunny place, but especially in winter. And where are you?
So Joseph is in Tallahassee, in Florida, and I am in San Jose, Costa Rica. All over the place.
Okay, can you guys see Mockoon now?
Yes. If you can zoom in again a little bit, that'll be great.
Can I?
Yeah, in
I don't know if
Mockoon
you can.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it does have the shortcut keys.
Awesome.
Okay, cool. So this is Mockoon. This is locally installed. It looks like I need to restart here because I've edited some stuff recently. And so this is like a whole bunch of API templates. Each one of these is like a different method and a route. It's connected to data that you can run through the API, and it'll return and generate data for you. So I want to actually back up and show you how I started this one. This is an eBay API for inventory items. And if you've worked with the eBay API, it is really hard just to get to the point of hitting an endpoint and getting data back. Like the authentication and creating a store and getting the ID for the merchant location. And there's like so much stuff involved before you can even just get back a responsive inventory items. Or you can copy and paste this into Mockoon. And the only thing I changed here is this repeat line. So just after the start of the array, you put in this repeat. And then down at the bottom here, before the array ends, there's a repeat. And I put in a couple examples here of generating an integer with a max of 20. So there's kind of a mix of Faker.js syntax and then Mockoon here. But once you figure out, how to copy and paste those little shortcuts and notations for different integers and strings and whatnot, you could swap out all this. Every one of these arrays here could be a different dynamic value. What I have set up is only the quantities. So as I refresh this here, you can see that I'm generating a new set of X number of rows, and I can pass in the query parameter here for how many rows I want. And there's only 2 of them now. And so I'm able to generate these on the fly and then come in here and adjust and give it whatever fields I want. So it's really easy to just, like I said, start with API docs that are hard-coded, copy and paste, change a couple lines, and now you've got a live API that you can start building on. So the next thing is, how do you get Mockoon connected to that API? So if you check out the URL here, it says localhost/app. I'm running Appsmith locally, and I'm talking to Mockoon, which is installed locally. To get to the app itself here, it's localhost/app. But if you look in the editor at the API itself, okay, this copy of Appsmith is running in Docker, and this API is talking to host.docker.internal, and then the port number. So back to Mockoon here, and this items route, this endpoint to get some records that are generated right here, it is using port 3000. Is that in the settings? Yeah. So you can see that I have this server running, because there's an option to stop it here. It's running on server port 3000, sorry, and at that items route. And then, so hitting that endpoint, it's checking the parameter, generating some records. So, okay, so you got Appsmith installed locally. You create an API that's talking to host.docker.internal, whatever port number that you've set up on Mockoon, and then you can start to generate records and get them back here in your local Appsmith. You could also forward your internal Mockoon, or ideally host it in the cloud and then have everything in the cloud. But again, just to do this quickly, I did it locally here. And so the last thing I wanted to show with Mockoon here, before we go on to building this in Appsmith, is so you can generate from a template, and there are a bunch of templates here. I've upgraded to the pro version, so I have all these, but there's a subset of them that are in the free version. And every one of these, as you pick it, you'll see that all of the fields here are going to generate some random data for you that is specific to the data type. This is going to be a zip, not just a random number. It'll be a good zip code, and a city name. So this is great to quickly build a back end. And then there's this AI one, and you can just give it a prompt and it'll generate something. Usually it's expecting a text prompt, just like a sentence, plain English. But I tried pasting in a JSON object of hard-coded, and it gave me back, date future for the start and end date, things like that. So I used this as a starting point and then just swapped out. I made a couple more adjustments, and now I have a API to mock and start building this back end. And so, or the front end rather. And so it's got a bunch of different tasks, and I wanted to get to the UI part of figuring out how to use this library without, just hard-coded tasks. I wanted something dynamic, but not having to set up a whole back end. So that's why I really like using Mockoon for this. So I think that's a good background on everything there on the Mockoon side. Any questions there on Kevin or Guillaume? Anything you guys want to highlight before I go on?
Just one remark. I was trying when you were demoing this, and in the template generator, if I can share my screen very quickly.
Sure.
I tried to put in the prompt Frappe Gantt JSON config, and I don't know this library, but I think it returns something quite realistic. Maybe there are some mistake, I don't know, but
no, that's pretty close to what I had. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's quite useful, even for libraries configuration, etc. But your use was.
It even made the dependencies an array.
Yes.
And the way that I did it, there's a single dependency for every task. So that's really good. It is fully using all the features there.
Yeah, it's interesting. Your way of doing things was also interesting. I didn't know that you could paste, a full JSON and that it will just mimic and
Yeah,
replace with faker helpers. I
I
didn't
like to
try that.
break things and do unexpected, stuff to see what happens. Well, cool. All right. So I think what we'll do now is show how I actually start the custom widget. So that's Mockoon. It's awesome for mocking stuff like this. And now that we've got that set up, we're going to use a custom widget to build a Gantt chart. So let's look at the library first before we get into the actual build, because the way I approach this, if I'm trying to build a custom widget, well, what problem am I trying to solve? Okay, what libraries exist for that?
Mhm.
And then are you trying to run the library by importing it into Appsmith and having it in the JS editor? Or is this a use case where you would use the library in an iframe or a custom widget, And so you just kind of going down this path of like figuring out what's going to work and ruling things out. And so I came to this one. It works in a custom widget, and it is expecting an array of tasks, just like the one that the template just generated there that Guillaume had. So it wants a start and end date, and I tried other date formats and it wasn't working. It has to be year, month, day. I tried with slashes because that's where my data was coming back from. That didn't work. It had a full timestamp with the time zone, and it just has to be exactly right. Like there's your data 99% of the time, whoever's trying to use this library, it's probably not going to just start in this format, right? You've got data already, and now you want to use this. And so the next piece is transforming your data, get it into the right format. And actually, I'm skipping ahead. That's not quite next. I would say the next thing is you hard code the data. So I'm going to comment out my live one and put it back to this hard coded one. You'll see that in the JS object, I just have one function and then some sample tasks. So here's the hard-coded version. This is not much code at all because most of this is just the sample tasks here. So I've connected the widget to look at the hard-coded version instead, and we'll go check out the live version of it here. It's looking at the appsmith.model.tasks.
And sorry
Okay?
to cut you up, Joseph, over there, because the UI that you just shown is probably new to everyone. Like for us, we have been seeing the custom widget UI, but the custom UI, the custom widget UI you just shown where you have like the HTML, the JavaScript. If you can go back to that and just give a glimpse of what it is and how it looks, because this is probably something new to everyone in the audience right now.
Yeah, definitely. You're right. Good call. Okay, so backing up here, this is a custom widget, and it's a new widget that we have here, custom here. Yeah, so the custom widget's like an iframe, but it's like, turbocharged. There's like all these extra features for it for events and separating the HTML and JS and everything. So when I select the custom widget here, outside of the widget editor, which we'll see in a minute, it's pretty simple. There's just this model, and you can make it visible, and there are events. So when you're in the Appsmith editor, that's about all you see. You can pass in some data in this model, and then once the widget receives it, there's this separate editor. So you go to the source editor here while the widget's selected. And so over here now you've got the either split or tabs of each component here, the HTML, CSS, and JS, and you can reference things from the rest of the app. So appsmith.model will have the things that you've passed in, the data, and then you can run appsmith.updateModel and pass it an object that gets merged in. So I'm passing it updated tasks and giving it the data from the tasks, and it sends that back, right? You can also trigger, like send the data, and then you want to run an event right after that. So trigger event, appsmith.trigger event, and then what's the name of the event you want to trigger? So basically I'm sending the data out of the widget and then telling Appsmith to run a function, and then send the data out when they change the date, and then tell it to run the function. Same with the progress change here. So the custom widget lets you pass data back and forth like you would with an iframe, but it's in this model, this object here. And here I've got the hard-coded tasks, and then I went to the docs here, and I just took the example that they give you. I'm importing the library. I've got hard-coded tasks, and then you run. The way that you call it is new Gantt. What is the ID of the HTML element in the in your custom widget that you want to update, and then what's the array of tasks? And then there's this optional settings config object here. You don't need the third parameter. So that's all there is to it. It was pretty easy to get the hard-coded part working. Just copy paste and into the widget, and it worked. Then you've got to dynamically connect data, but the thing is the data is not in the right format, right? So now let's head back to the raw data coming in from the query from okay, so if you look at the data coming back, the dates, I'm going to go to the JSON view here. These are date objects, like a string with the full time zone and everything, and they're not in the right format. It wouldn't display, and it was breaking the integration there with a custom widget. So I've got a JSON object here that's going to transform that into the right format and then send that to the custom widget. So this, it's not as complex as it looks. It's I'm taking in the task, and then I want to return something, which is a map of all the tasks. Take all the ones that I currently have, map over them, and I'm assigning. So T is the task in a map. The first argument there, the first parameter is the task itself as I'm mapping over. And for that task, I'm assigning this object. So override the ID. It needed to be a string. It was coming back as a number. It also had a 0 index. So I wanted the first one to be task 1 instead of task 0. So I'm assigning the value for the ID to 1UP plus a string. Then I'm taking the start date that it provided, that was a time zone, wrapping that in the moment, getting it into the right format. And the last thing here is for the dependencies. I'm using Lodash sample. So this will just give you one random element, a lot easier than it is to do the array length and then the ran between and trying to, you can build your own random thing, but Lodash made it easy. So that gives me one random element from the array of this map, and again, add 1 to it. So this is just slightly updating each value here. Map over it and just kind of tweak each one until it's in the right format for the chart widget. And so that's the first half of like getting your data in there. There's like kind of copy and paste the HTML, the CSS, get all the hard-coded stuff working. Okay, once that works, now you want to connect your data, but it's probably not in the right format, so you transform it. Now that you get your data in there, so let's try to wire that back up again. I want to use the output of the function instead of the hard-coded tasks. And this is just the default, but I'm still going to change my default to use the API here. Okay, so that's working again. If I look at the API results, the data comes back with these full date strings and a 0 index on the ID and a number for an ID instead of text. So all these things that were breaking it. And then when I run this one, now I'm getting back that same data set with just some slight modifications, so it will display properly in the chart there. Whew. All right, how are we doing on time here?
Well, we are 28 minutes in, but yeah. I think we're going pretty nicely. Everything is going great.
Okay, so I have dynamic data passed into my widget and it's updating. Cool, that much works. Now when I update one of these, how am I getting that back out? Because this is outside of the custom widget, right? Inside the custom widget, you've got all that code running over here, like in an iframe, but then to talk to the rest of your app outside of it. So this is where you really got to reference the docs for whatever library you're using. This is not an Appsmith specific thing. It's a problem that is going to be different with every library that you use. So it's how does that library, what events are there? What happens when you click stuff? And in this case, in this library, there's an event for adjusting the start or end date. So that's the outer sliders. And then there's an event for adjusting the progress, which is the inner slider here. You can adjust the start and end at the same time if you just grab the whole thing, or you can independently change them. And the one thing this library I saw does not support is changing the dependencies. So you would have to build a different UI to say this task depends on that one. Here you can only adjust the start and end dates. But anyway, study the library, figure out what's possible. What are you trying to, like, what functions do you want to connect? And in this case, I wanted a function called onDateChange. And if you check out the, in this case, the Frappe Gantt library, it'll tell you that the onDateChange that's going to pass in a task and a start and end date. Whereas if it's on the progress change down here, it's just the task and the progress, because you have not changed the start and end date. So it's just giving you the task and the progress. And so in every case here, I've got a function named whatever event that could happen over here. There's some event that can happen inside your widget. And so you got a function named that. You don't have to name them the same, but that's what I'm doing to keep it simple. And then I pass it an object, or rather inside the function, I update the Appsmith model. And so that gets data outside of the custom widget, but it hasn't done anything yet. It hasn't like triggered anything, right? So now that I have sent the data out of the model, now I want to trigger an event outside of the app, outside of the custom widget. And again, I'm using a matching name. You didn't have to, but just to keep it simple. So this function, when a user, this is to build the chart, let's see, on date change. Yeah, so the slider at the start or the end would trigger this, and it would update the model with the data about that task and the event name, so I know what happened, what triggered to send this out here. Then once that happens and that gets updated to the model, this JSON that I'm viewing right here, this is custom one, the widget. This is its models.updated task. So the data has left the custom widget and updated something outside of it every time I adjust one of these, but it's not triggering anything unless you also have a matching event over here. And so on this list of events, all I have is this reset one, like this default one. And so what I want to do is, let's go back to the custom widget. I thought I had part of this already connected for the demo, but it looks like I'll have to rebuild it. So I need an event name, onDateChange. And on this custom widget, I'm going to rename this event onDateChange. And the thing that this event will do will show an alert of, I'll just hard code it because we just want to know that it happened. Date changed. So that custom widget now has an event called onDateChange. And what we're trying to do is get it to show an alert. Oh, it looks like it didn't rename it. Did that save? Yes.
You might have to click the checkbox next to the event name. There you go.
The sliders can be a little finicky in the editor.
Yeah.
But that's the basics of it. You want to have matching names so that when you call it, otherwise you're going to have like a lookup or have to like map the names. So I'm just trying to keep them the same. So that is how you can connect every kind of piece of it, but then it's going to be different for your data source. And so, I thought about trying to build this with a specific backend and getting every piece of it wired in the full CRUD, but that's not going to be as useful to the next person if we use Postgres and they're using Mongo or whatnot. I think that the toughest part of this is, and the thing that I really wanted to show is the transforming the data into the right format that the library expects, and then getting those events to trigger. And so the important thing to remember there is when you go back to the source here on the editor, you have to trigger that event. So you want to update the model, and this is feeding what gets displayed here, and then trigger an event, and that event should have a matching name. You have to create this event outside of this part of the custom widget editor, right? This is editing the source code of like the three HTML, CSS, JS. And then outside of the editor, outside of the custom widget editor, back in this editor, you've got the events that you can define. And so you can keep adding new events and just define as many as you need to match whatever's happening inside of here. So I think that covers all the basics that that I wanted to show of how you go about implementing this. We have a little bit of time left. Any questions or stuff that you guys want to kind of go over here? Well, we got maybe 10, 15 minutes left.
I don't have much questions so far. I think it's pretty clear, and I truly believe that the custom widget is making things like this much easier, where you need like a custom implementation of something that doesn't exist out of the box in Appsmith, and you really need to do like use a custom library or something like that. And the fact that in custom widgets you can, we have support for React or any other of these frameworks, like it's truly amazing. Or if you want to do just vanilla JS, but in general terms, I believe you explained it very, very, very nicely. Just to recap, in terms of how it worked, you basically had both Appsmith and Mockoon running locally, and you connected them throughout the Docker internal HTTP requests, right?
Right. Yep. And it's in the docs. I usually have to look it up to remember the exact thing. So I'm checking it right now. It is host.docker.internal. So instead of localhost port number, it's host.docker.internal and then colon whatever port number. And once I had that part, everything else was easy. It's takes you 2 seconds to copy paste, create a new API, and then have it connected in Appsmith. And it's really cool to like take any API doc and just paste that in there. And now you're using that JSON, that data structure, even with nested arrays. I did not do that in this example, but last week I was doing something with the Salesforce and Jira API with like issues and tickets. And I wanted X number, and I needed to see like a bunch of child records, right? And again, it slows you down when you're just trying to do the UI part, and you got to like stop and set up all that and make mock data and try to make it look realistic. So really excited to be partnering with Mockoon, and we'll have some more content coming out. Definitely, we've got other ideas of how we can use this, and I think we'll have some more cool integrations coming soon. Some more custom widget stuff. I want to show a couple other things just to kind of let everybody see what's possible now that custom widgets are coming.
Mm-hmm.
I've got 2 other examples started here. So here we go. We got a grid widget. This is another feature request that the community has been asking for a while, and custom widgets is going to solve so many that we decided to prioritize this one widget to solve all these other ones. And instead of just one at a time trying to do a grid and then a signature pad and whatnot. So we'll be able to churn these out now. This is dynamically generated from the data. The buttons are actually HTML. It's not our native widget, but I made it look as close as I could. And I even got the theme to update. This is something cool I want to show for anybody trying to build a custom widget, or even in an iframe. When you're tying everything together and trying to make it look like the rest of your app, you can reference the Appsmith theme. So if I go back to the edit the source here, and if you check out the CSS for this, I'm inserting some variables here, and check out the help right here. It tells you the variable names. So instead of appsmith.theme, and I think in the editor, when it's JS, it's appsmith.theme.colors and then .primary color. It's a little shorter here, and its notation's different. So it's not theme.colors, just go straight to primary or background. But you can reference all those variables here. And as you change the theme, that changes the variable, which updates the page. So to make it look more consistent, I have referenced the border radius as well, and the background color and the primary color. And you can do the same thing on the JavaScript and HTML side. If you want to reference things outside, there's, let's see, on the JavaScript side here, referencing the on model change. This is when the model gets changed. What do you want to occur inside your widget? And somewhere I thought I had some references back outside of it. Maybe not on this one. Um, let's look at the last example here. So a calendar widget, again, this is another big one that's a big feature request. And I've got a simple example here tied into some data. You can click on an event, and maybe I didn't get this one wired. Somewhere I've got one that pulls up the event. But that was before custom widgets. That was an iframe one. And so there's just so much more that you can do now with the Appsmith model here, stripped out as its own property, whereas before it was inside of all of your iframe code and trying to parse through and update little chunks of it without re-rendering the whole page. So it is a little more complex, but the custom widgets can just do a lot more, and they're more powerful, more tightly integrated with the platform with these events. So really looking forward to what else we're going to be able to build with this.
Yeah, definitely. And again, I don't want to like spoil anything, but all of this is coming together in terms of reusability, and iframes are great. Has been solving a lot of the different things, and apps. Joseph is definitely one of the iframes lovers. I've seen crazy things he has built with iframes in Appsmith, but when it comes to reusability and what we're building with custom widgets, is that the fact that you will be able to make widgets reusable and interoperable within applications. But in general terms, like I said, I don't want to spoil anything because there's big announcements that we're going to be doing around all of this, and we're going to have a lot of content around how it works, so you can be prepared to implement this in your Appsmith applications. But we do know that it is a well requested feature, and you can see that in our public roadmap. But in general terms, I do feel that today's live coding, Joseph, I don't know if you agree, has been more fluid and more easygoing thanks to the custom widget thing.
Yeah, definitely. We're able to get a lot further and do something more complex in a shorter time, I think, especially having the separate fields there and the syntax highlighting. Whereas the iframe approach, you can still do a lot, but the whole thing's one big string, and you're trying to use template literals, and then the syntax and everything's just all one color because it thinks it's a string, right? It's just so much nicer of a developer experience to have the actual code formatting and 3 separate panes, and so it's coming along.
Yeah, it's really coming along. So, Guillaume, any closing words from your end? I we have seen that your product is completely seamless, no problem. It solved definitely one of the biggest problems that we normally have in Appsmith. But anything you want to tell about Mockoon, your audience? Where are you heading towards? What's the future of your product? How can we find you or your product? Anything you want to share?
Yeah. It was really awesome, and I really like what you are building at Appsmith. And I mean, there are a lot of use cases for not only the custom widgets, of course, but all the widgets like that, all the internal apps you could build in companies. I mean, all companies need a lot of small apps, and I'm really happy to see also the couple of Appsmith and Mockoon, and it seems to be a really really cool way, also to quickly create a proof of concept. When you are working in a company, you are building something, or you think that you could help one of the team with a small app, but you have to sell it, to the upper management usually. And being able to do that very quickly and set up a proof of concept in like 10 minutes, or maybe a bit more, it's awesome. And I think it really helps. And I'm really ecstatic that we are partnering and that I see my app in the wild, helping people. So, I mean, that will be my closing word. I'm really, really happy if it helps people and saves time to everybody. Now, where are we heading? As I said, so it's an open source application or project at its core. So this is not going anywhere. It wouldn't make sense. It would be a betrayal. And we saw recently some stories, about open source application going south. So it's not a road that I want to take. So the application is growing well, and we crossed 500,000 downloads recently, and
Nice.
we have more and more people using it every month. Uh, so it's something that is growing. I'm really happy about that. And now it's the path to sustainability. So I'm the only one working full time on it, but I hope we will be more soon. And one way of doing this is releasing some options, non-mandatory options, not optional options. That doesn't work. Um, but a SaaS platform with some options like data synchronization, team collaboration. This is coming
Mm.
not very soon, but soon enough, probably in February or March. I'm finalizing these two features. And later this year, cloud deployment. And I know that a lot of users and companies are awaiting this. So this will be our way to keep the app open source and of course make it profitable, so we can guarantee its future. And so that's what is coming, the big things, the SaaS and also WebSocket support. One contributor is working on that. That will be a big milestone. So I'm really happy about this.
Nice.
And a lot of things here and there. We are interviewing our contributors right now, and every month there are new features coming out. And I invite people to have a look at our website. You can also join us on Discord. So it's mockoon.com, Mockoon. But if you do a typo, Google will correct it. It's okay.
Right.
We have a lot of
Cool.
typos, and you can find us. You can also reach me on anything, LinkedIn, email, and I will be really, really happy to discuss and take feedback and interact with our users.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Guillaume, for your time, Joseph, for explaining all of this. And before we head off, I really want to emphasize that we are in the monthly contest event. Remember, I
Mm.
mentioned that we thought about Hacktoberfest. Why doing it once per year? Why don't we do it every month? And that's exactly where we are heading towards. So, if you want to understand where to find all the information about how to participate, what some ideas about how you can participate, how to submit your template, we are in the productivity month, and that is why Joseph focused today his session around productivity and how you can be more building productivity apps with Appsmith. So go to our community portal, build whatever you want around productivity. It doesn't have to be a big uh, application. What Joseph just built, he's like the master of Appsmith. You can start with something simple like a to-do list or a spreadsheet task that imports from a spreadsheet and push to another product, things like that. We support multiple data sources, and whatever you can build in terms of productivity, you can submit, because at the end, that's what it matters, that you learn something every month and that you can also win cool swags. For example, I'm going to show you here some of the swag we sent to one of our community members, which he was bragging about it. He got a nice sweater, and I really wanted that sweater as well. So in general terms, not only is about winning swag, but it's about learning. Every month is a different topic. So if you maybe don't have the chance to participate this month, or maybe the topic you couldn't think about an idea, you have February and you have all of the following months. So stay tuned for what the next month is going to be. But I encourage you to participate. Whatever the application you build is, I know that probably you're going to learn something and it can help somebody else. The idea is that our template, community template, grows a lot, and people have chances to start that application not from scratch but from something valuable. For example, Joseph, it's going to be sharing his template that he's built today in the template library, and you can just fork it and be able to try it out yourself and use it for your product. So Joseph, any closing words from your end?
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. So, like you mentioned, this is a new feature, custom widgets. What you guys saw today is a preview that is only available for Appsmith staff. So it is not out there on the cloud yet, but it is just around the corner. And we should have a template live as soon as it's actually the features available for everyone else. We don't want to put the template out there and then it doesn't work in your account. So we will release the template with this and put a link in the video as soon as the feature's live for everyone else. Should be out by the end of the quarter. We're really excited about it.
Excellent. So with that said, thank you so much, Joseph and Guillaume, and I hope you have a great rest of the month, and we'll catch up soon.
Thank you.
All
All
right.
right. Thanks,
Bye.
everyone.
Thank you, everyone who joined, and we see you on the next one next week. Have a great rest of the day. Bye bye.